Most riders believe experience is the only thing that matters when they finally buy the bike they've always wanted. It isn't. It happens to riders with 30 years on two wheels. It happens to riders who've never dropped a bike in their life. And it's happening more often than most riders want to admit. Most won't notice until they're standing in a driveway, not moving. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which motorcycles cause this and why it has nothing to do with how well you ride. Here's a pattern mechanics who service returning riders keep seeing. A rider who's completely confident at 70 miles an hour starts hesitating the moment the bike stops moving, backing out of a space, catching it on an uneven curb, holding it up at a light. It's rarely framed as an age problem. It's usually framed as, the bike feels heavier than it used to. The skill never left. What changed is the tolerance for wrestling several hundred pounds of motorcycle at 0 miles an hour. Here's exactly what's happening and what it means for you. Riding experience doesn't disappear with age. Judgment doesn't disappear. Confidence doesn't disappear. But a motorcycle doesn't care about any of that. It only cares about strength, balance, flexibility, and how well your joints recover the next morning. Quick gut check. When's the last time you actually rode the bike you always dreamed about somewhere further than the gas station? This isn't a list of old rider motorcycles versus young rider motorcycles. It's 7 motorcycles that riders buy for very human reasons: nostalgia, ambition, a lifelong dream finally within reach, and then quietly stop enjoying. Not because the bike failed them, but because the ownership reality underneath the spec sheet finally caught up. And there's one number that matters more than horsepower, more than curb weight, more than seat height on this entire list. We're not giving it to you yet. We're saving it for the very last bike, because once you hear it, every entry before it will make a lot more sense. We're starting with the bike that looks like the smart, humble choice. Lightweight, street legal, a trail bike you could technically ride to the coffee shop. On paper, it looks exactly like what a rider downsizing from something bigger should want. Here's the catch. Nobody puts on the spec sheet. The CRF450RL isn't built like a casual dual sport. It's a race-bred machine with tall, firm competition ergonomics, front suspension travel around 12 inches, rear travel close to 11.8 inches. That's fantastic if you're jumping whoops on a trail. It's a different story entirely if your hips, knees, or lower back aren't looking for a workout every time you sit down on it. Older riders looking for something lighter can easily underestimate how much mobility, stamina, and physical recovery a genuinely race-bred dual sport still demands. Lighter doesn't always mean easier. Sometimes it just changes what's hard. Now let's challenge the assumption we just made that lighter automatically means easier. The KTM 500 EXC-F weighs only around 253 pounds without fuel. That's dramatically lighter than almost anything else on this list. If weight were the only variable, this would be the obvious answer for an older rider trying to downsize. It isn't, and here's why. This bike carries a seat height of nearly 38 inches, taller than several of the heavyweight machines we are about to get to. It's a highly specialized Enduro platform built for serious off-road riding, not casual daily ownership. So picture a rider with any reduction in hip mobility trying to swing a leg over this thing, or trying to flat-foot it at a stop. The lightest bike on the entire list becomes one of the hardest to actually use. It looks like sensible downsizing. It behaves like a completely different kind of challenge, one about reach and mounting effort, not muscle. Hold on to that idea, because in a couple of entries, we are going to see this exact same trap spring, just on the opposite end of the weight scale entirely. This is where it starts to get emotional, because the Rocket 3 Storm is the kind of motorcycle that pulls returning riders back in through pure presence alone. Massive torque, roughly 166 pound-feet, out of a 2,458 cubic centimeter engine. A seat height low enough to feel reassuring the moment you throw a leg over it in the showroom. It feels like raw power without compromise. What that showroom moment doesn't tell you, this bike weighs somewhere around 699 to 705 pounds wet, combined with genuinely extreme performance and large physical dimensions. An older, returning rider gets pulled in by that low, confidence-inspiring seat, and then discovers the real ownership challenge isn't the highway at all. It's the routine, low-speed moments. Backing out of a garage, turning around on a slight incline, catching it if it starts to lean the wrong way at a stop. That's where nearly 700 pounds of motorcycle demands more strength and confidence than most riders expect walking in. Quick pause before we go further. If this kind of honest, no-hype ownership breakdown is useful to you, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because the next few entries are where this list really turns a corner. Remember the KTM's paradox a couple of entries back? The lightest bike on the list being one of the hardest to actually mount? Here's the flip side of that same problem on one of the heaviest bikes on this list. The Gold Wing Tour DCT comes with genuinely clever engineering built to solve exactly this issue. Dual clutch automatic transmission, a reverse gear, and something Honda calls walking mode, which lets the bike creep forward and backward at walking pace under its own power. So does the technology actually solve the problem? Only part way. The Gold Wing Tour DCT weighs approximately 847 pounds. Reverse and walking mode can help you move it in a straight line without wrestling it, but they can't do a thing once the bike actually starts to lean. That's the theme running under this entire list. Electronic assistance can help you manage weight. It cannot replace balance. The moment gravity gets involved, a bike leaning at a stoplight, a slightly uneven parking space, 847 pounds is still 847 pounds, and no amount of DCT changes that math. We're slowing down here because this might be the most misleading motorcycle on the entire list. The R300 GS Adventure is, by almost every measure, an incredible machine, exceptional range, cutting-edge technology, genuine expedition capability. Fully fueled, it sits around 593 pounds with roughly 7.9 gallons of fuel capacity feeding all that range. And yet the seat height can climb above 35 inches, adjustable settings landing around 34.6 and 35.4 inches, on top of a wide body that becomes very noticeable the moment the bike isn't moving anymore. That's the trap. This bike is designed to go anywhere, and it genuinely can. But anywhere often includes uneven ground, gravel shoulders, and off-camber stops. Exactly the situations where hip mobility, reach, and the confidence to catch a tall, wide motorcycle matter more than horsepower or electronics ever will. Reduced hip mobility, a shorter reach to the ground, or simply less confidence catching a tall bike can turn all that unused adventure capability into a daily burden instead of a daily benefit. You bought a bike built to conquer the world. Most of your rides are still the driveway and the gas station. This one isn't about weight or seat height at all. This is about the difference between what your skill can still do and what your body will actually tolerate. Ever wonder why bikes like this so often get traded in with barely any real miles on the clock? It is rarely a lack of nerve. The Panigale V4 produces approximately 216 horsepower and weighs only around 421 pounds without fuel, one of the most exhilarating combinations you can legally ride on the street. And an experienced older rider absolutely still has the skill to ride it well. Skill doesn't fade the way people assume. What fades is something else entirely. Wrist pressure from the committed riding position, a tight knee bend held for the length of every ride, neck strain from the aggressive lean angle, heat radiating off the engine in slow traffic, and a body position that demands total physical commitment every single time you throw a leg over it. Older riders may still have every bit of the skill this motorcycle requires and discover, ride after ride, that their joints and their recovery time no longer tolerate the position the bike demands them to hold. That isn't a failure of nerve. It is just physics meeting physiology. If any of this is starting to sound familiar, you are not alone, and a lot of riders don't clock this until it's already happening to them. Subscribe for more honest, no-nonsense ownership breakdowns like this one, and drop a comment telling us which bike on this list surprised you the most. And that brings us to the number we told you to remember at the very start of this list. The Road Glide Limited is, in almost every way, the dream touring bike. Outstanding long-distance comfort, excellent weather protection, A commanding traditional touring presence that makes every highway mile feel effortless. This is the motorcycle a lot of riders picture the moment they imagine retirement riding. Here's the number. Approximately 919 pounds, sitting behind a seat that's only about 27.5 inches off the ground. That low seat height is supposed to be reassuring, marketed, and often perceived as the easy version of a big touring bike. At highway speed, cruising an open road, it genuinely can feel effortless. But the real story is everything that happens before and after that highway mile. Nearly 920 pounds becomes increasingly difficult to balance, to reverse out of a parking space, and if it starts to go, to recover from a lean. A low seat can reassure a rider with reduced leg strength or fading balance confidence right up until the moment that confidence gets tested. And when it does, routine parking, not the ride itself, becomes the single hardest part of owning this motorcycle. That's the number we promised you at the start. It was never the horsepower, the weight, or the seat height on its own. It's the 10 seconds below walking speed that nobody plans for, and it's the thread running through every single motorcycle on this list. So here's where we land. Most riders think the motorcycle that matters is the one that thrills them fastest, the one that finally lives up to decades of waiting. What actually matters is the one you can still confidently pull out of the garage next Tuesday. Experience doesn't disappear with age, but strength, balance, and flexibility change quietly, long before most riders are willing to admit it. And the motorcycle doesn't care how many years you've been riding, it only cares about right now. A smaller, lower, lighter bike you actually ride every week will always beat a dream machine gathering dust in the garage. If this video helped you look at your own next motorcycle a little differently, hit subscribe. We break down ownership truths like this every week. No fluff, no filters.